Just as we thought after the game, our comments were really accurate. Played good in all three phases at Tech, and we were very pleased with our team and the way they handled playing on the road, the adversity and ups and downs of a football game. So moving forward, and each week is a challenge for us, and so we've been through the tape and starting to put our game plans together for Kansas, and then back to work tomorrow. Players obviously are in a good frame of mind, so should have a good week of practice.
Mike, considering the way Smith played a year ago, probably didn't shock you that he was capable of playing like that.
Well, he's gotten a little bit better each week, and he didn't throw the ball as good as we'd have wanted him to in Iowa, but he's certainly shown signs of being successful, and I think that with the personnel that we have, and we're kind of getting a feel for what direction we're going offensively, it gave him a chance to play a little better.
Does that include the fact that you're able to run the ball much better here the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question with Dez being able to carry the load, and has allowed Rennie to come in and use some of his speed and strength when the defense is fatigued. And then Jeremy came in and made some plays for us. You know, he averaged over 5.5 yards per carry and had a nice reception. So hopefully we're moving in the right direction.
That speaks to the confidence you have in him. Clinton has had a couple picks, but you still let him run the offense and throw the football.
Well, no question. You're going to have to score points. And, we said this at this time last week, that playing out there in Lubbock and, you're very seldom you're going to go out there and score 20, 24 points and win the game. You're going to have to score points to win. And so you got to run your offense and correct the mistakes and keep moving forward.
What about the fourth down calls for touchdowns? Were those discussed a lot, or did you make the decision, or did Coach Yersick make the decision?
Well, I make the decision on fourth down calls with input from whichever side of the ball it is, but ultimately it's my decision whether we go for fourth downs.
You know how much heck you would catch if Barry Sanders came to town and you guys hadn't been able to run the ball this year from Barry? And you've got it going the last 2 weeks, 600 and some yards. You're making Barry happy, obviously.
Well, not a lot because he doesn't talk much. So, I'm sure he follows us, but how much detail he knows about what's going on would probably be pretty scarce.
You would have not liked it if you had gone the whole season and not got the run game uncorked. It was important to you to say, this is going to happen, run game is going to get better. Here you go.
Well, ultimately we have to win games. We want our team to win games, and it's not going to be the same each year. We're playing pretty good defense right now, and I'm really proud of what Ty's done in our kicking game and the commitment our players have given us in the kicking game. And we've had to use those resources different than what we have in the last 4 or 5 years. But as we continue to get better on offense and try to play with the style of play that we have in those two phases, ultimately that's called coaching. That's what we're supposed to do. And we have to work our way through where we're deficient and get better, but also play to the strengths of our football team.
How did the Josh Stewart in the backfield package come about?
Oh, just what you see on tape. Not anything out of the ordinary other than a package that we've had in. We've had that 5 wide receiver package in. And just thought we would have an opportunity for him to run the ball out of that set, and we should have. The second time we should have been able to run it also. We had an edge, but we just didn't get out there and get on it.
Is that an example of just giving your best playmakers a chance to get the ball in that type of situation?
Sure. We would love for him to touch the ball 15 times a game, and I've said this for years that you can't always promise that with a wide receiver. You can toss the ball to them and flip it to them that we do in these spread offenses, but they can take that away. They can run a guy up the field, run outside and stop you from doing it. They can certainly bracket coverage you, which we saw Saturday night and we saw some last week. It's easier to give it to a running back. You can almost secure that he's going to get the ball so many times. But so we try to find ways for him to touch the football within the system that we use on game day.
Yet another big punt return. Just talk about how he's really got that side of the game.
You know, the two punt returns, well, we've had a number of punt returns, but the big ones, we've had 9 people blocked on both of them. And Branson turned around and blocked the punter Saturday. And the other day, our guys turned around and blocked the last guy. And there's always going to be one guy that's unblocked because somebody's carrying the ball. So the scheme and the commitment they've made has been really good. But in most cases on punt returns, he has to make the first guy miss, and then he has to have vision and find his way through there, and that's where he's really improving over the season.
You've been reminding us the past couple of weeks that Clint's an effective runner. Put on that 67-yard dash. Did that speed even surprise you a little bit? He was able to pull away?
I've always thought that he was an effective runner, and there's times when he's nifty and he's productive. It just doesn't look as good when he's executing the run game. You know, there's a lot of questions early in the year about the two quarterbacks having different plays. He runs the same plays, and he was nifty and he was effective for us Saturday night.
Talk a little bit about the goal line stand late. I thought it was a real statement by your defense.
We thought so. It was play 100, 95, 96, 97, 98, through 100 somewhere in there, and we got great effort from our down guys, got great effort from our backers, and it's not always easy to do. But we made a point of that in our meeting on Sunday night, and I'm just very proud of the players. You know, and I said this in the post game, and I mean it, that, you know, ultimately it comes down to the players. I mean, we do the best we can to put them in position, but they have to make a decision as a team that they want to win, and they want to put more into it than whoever they're playing. And sometimes that works out for you as a coach, sometimes it doesn't. And the chemistry of this team is getting a little bit better each week. I think that our approach as coaches has improved over the season, and we've contributed to that. But when you're at play 100, when you're on the road and the other team's this far from scoring and you hold them, well, I think there's 5 plays within 3 yards maybe. That's pretty impressive. But they got to come back and do it next week.
Seems like you guys tackled pretty good. Up the one miss on the air war, 38 yards, but that's really the one I remember.
We tackled good, not great. You know, there's games that I'd mentioned that we were average in tackling, but I thought we tackled good. That style of play and that offense, you're going to be in space. And in our opinion, there's some risk reward. One of the areas that's difficult to defend is getting players in space and them having to tackle. You know, the tight end for their team is, you know, he's exceptional. He's special, and you know he's run across the field, and it's hard to get him down. But to answer your question, for the majority of the game, we tackled pretty well.
Mike, you continue to lead in turnover margin, but it came into play a couple times the other night. Your sack margin, you have 10 more sacks your defense has versus what you've been sacked offensively, and it's almost close to 100 yards difference. Talk about that and not only what that says, but the impact of those yards getting off the field.
We've improved over the last 3 weeks in our protection. Early in the season, we were below average at best, and it affected our quarterback play, in my opinion, and in our overall system. But we have gotten better over the last few weeks, and negative yardage plays, turnovers, are in the tackling, as was just mentioned, are really important in today's college football, in our opinion. And as you minimize your negative plays and certainly your sacks and tackle well in space, you have the best chance to win. You know, it's interesting with Kansas now. See, Kansas is way plus in the turnover margin also, and they don't beat themselves. You know, they've been in games and lost late, but for the most part, they haven't beaten themselves this year. So that's always a concern when you're playing a team that takes care of the football. And our defense has been really good this year in being around the football. You know, they had either 3 or 4 fumbles, and they only lost 1. They've been very opportunistic in recovering their fumbles. I was hoping we would get some of those, but it didn't work out that way for us. But we were able to get some interceptions at key times.
Desmond has 57 carries the last 2 games. I'm guessing he's built for that, or you wouldn't give him that burden.
Well, we didn't know. I mean, we were so bad in the running game that, you know, if you would tried anything, if you had plan B, you'd have tried to make trades and do anything possible to get the fire going and get a spark. And as I mentioned, I'm hoping that he matures into being Keith Toston. He's a long ways from that point, but his attitude's really good. His want to is really good. But you can't get away from the fact that we blocked better. Okay, early in the season we didn't block anybody, so it's hard to run the football. It's hard to throw the football. We've improved now. We have some stability up front. Those guys looked in the mirror and said, we've got to improve, we've got to get better. As coaches, we improved and gotten better in that area to fit our style of play. And so you're seeing the benefits of a running game, which is going to allow you to throw more passes.
Why Keith Toston? Why is he the guy that you'd like him to grow into?
Well, I think he's that style runner. He's certainly not going to be Kendall Hunter. He's, as Keith matured in about his third year here, he learned to run downhill, run through tackles, and he was a physical runner and got strong. And as the game went on, he was as good in the fourth quarter as he was in the first quarter because he had a physical presence about him and didn't really fatigue from a strength standpoint. And I think Dez has an opportunity to do that as he matures. He has carried the workload considerably. And I mentioned early in the year, we needed to identify a third back. And I'm hoping that Rennie's moving in that direction, giving us some speed and strength later in the game. And I think Jeremy, as he works in his role, will improve. Just like I said, he was over 5.5 yards a carry in the last game. So we have to continue to block up front, and our running backs have to work together as a group of three in order for our offense to function as one.
Did you get a look at Calvin Barnett's jersey during the game the other night?
I saw several of them.
Like all sewn up and everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to cost us a fortune from a seamstress after last week.
Coach, Kansas obviously not having
You said it. See, I didn't.
not having the success that they would like, and you all have, 3 big games after them. Do you make a point to talk to your team about just focusing on this game, or do you just, assume
Sure.
that?
We did just what you said last night. And, I've mentioned it for years. It's the one great thing about college football. We're in the playoffs right now. You can't play 500 and then get a chance to win a conference title or get a chance to play for it all at the end, like other sports. And that's what's so great about college football is you have to get ready and play each week. That's why people want to watch. And so in order for us to reach a goal, which would be to have a chance to win a conference championship, we certainly have to win this week. And I'm hoping that the maturity we have in our room that's shown up in the last month will help us in practice this week. And it'll help watching the tape, okay? And Baylor got Kansas in the middle of the game and opened it up and they couldn't catch them. And Tech got them late in the third quarter. But the other teams that played them, there wasn't much difference. And I just watched the entire Texas game. It was 13-6 with a couple minutes to go in the third quarter on the road. And you can just go on so on and so forth on down the road and watch their games. So I think the players will see that and that will help. And if they're not mature enough to understand that and prepare, then it's not as fun for them on Saturday.
Sometimes you don't know how well players appreciate history, but every one of the players we spoke about here, and especially Josh Stewart, talked about it being significant that Barry Sanders and that 88 team were going to be here. And Josh is like, I just hope I can meet him. I patterned a lot of my game after watching his highlights. How does that make you feel? I don't know if they paid attention to the quarterback on that team.
Well, I gave him a highlight tape. I gave him a highlight tape, where you do this and you do this and let him go. So, but I think our players are excited about this team coming back. They certainly are aware of it, and at times they've asked questions. And I told them the truth that, if that team was playing in today's football where we had the media coverage and every game was on TV and the BCS countdown show and they showed highlights, that team would have been all over the television and been on, from coast to coast. We went up through game 7, 8, 9. People didn't even know about Barry Sanders on the West Coast and the East Coast. There was a concern then, could he get the votes from people on the coast that hadn't seen him play? So they're very aware of our team, and I know they're looking forward to them being at the game.
You indeed have Barry meet those guys? Try.
I don't even know when he's going to be here. He's, in the bank business and selling cars. Other than that, I know he'll show up at some point. probably be an hour to 2 hour late, but he'll eventually make it here.
Sometimes when we all kind of live in the moment and don't appreciate things. 25 years later, what do you appreciate about that 88 team?
Well, as I mentioned, one, he's the best college football player ever to play the game. I mean, you can say what you want. He ran up 37 touchdowns and however many yards back when we only had 65 plays a game. We weren't even in high-tempo offenses. And he very seldom ever played in the fourth quarter. Some games he didn't play in the second half of the third quarter. So essentially the guy could have scored 50 touchdowns in an offense that had 65 to 68 plays a game. We weren't even up-tempo. So if he's playing today, he runs up 75 touchdowns very easily and probably rushes for 4,000 yards without a blink of an eye.
This guy's so good on offense that you were honestly shocked that when you had to punt or when somebody. Yeah.
We were very disappointed when we had to punt. You average 52 point something points a game with 65 plays a game. So if you run you can say what you want. You run 90 plays a game, you may average 80 points a game nowadays.
Did you realize that when you're going through that, you look back on that, like what you just said, best ever? Did you know it then? Did you feel it then?
I don't know that we did because there just wasn't that much exposure. Just what I was talking about. It took, the end of the season whether people even on the East and West Coast would vote for him for the Heisman, which now, when they saw his games, he'd have won the Heisman after game 5 or 6. So I don't know that we knew that. We just came and played the games and kept on going.
What is the best play you ever saw Barry Sanders make?
Oh, I think that's somewhat unfair because we all saw the plays that he made, and I think the greatest plays he made are when he was playing for the Lions and they never blocked anybody. I mean, I don't know disrespect for the Lions, but when I was young and coaching and could see some games, I would watch Emmett, who I think Emmett's a great player, but Emmett was running where people were blocking, and Barry was running and making cuts in the backfield 3 yards deep and making another cut at the line of scrimmage and then making somebody miss 5 yards down the field. And those highlights that we show our team sometimes before we have team meetings are the most impressive plays from him because he's going against the best in the world. I mean, those guys that are tackling are pretty good players, and he still makes them look silly, and I think those are his best plays.
Do you remember the play at Nebraska? I mean, it's one that gets shown. I don't think it was but a 7 or 8 yard gain.
Right.
But I mean, the guy literally ran about, 50, 60, 70 yards to get 8.
Right. I remember the play. But nobody else saw it because people didn't see games back then. The elevation he made on the 4th down on the goal line at Colorado, there's pictures of it around here. I don't know how high he was, but that would have been all over every network if we would have played in that time. Good?
Sean Lewis and Caleb Blayton both had picks for you. I would think they're probably two of your leaders on your whole team because they're seniors. Talk about how they also, these plays they make, I mean, you can't really be a leader unless you're making those kind of plays. And they've both been real good for you all season.
And we showed highlights of them last night to our team. Sean makes the open field tackle in a somewhat a crucial situation over on our bench. Caleb hits the guy on the 4th down play on the goal line. And they've done that, and what happens is they've played so many games and they have so much experience and they've seen so much that they can move faster and play faster. There's just no substitute for experience and maturity, and both of those guys are having really good seasons. And, as a coach, it just thrills you to death to see it because they're great kids. I mean, they, yes sir, no sir, they show up on time, they're leaders, do whatever you ask them to do. If they do something wrong, they come right back, and they're great kids, and they're playing really well. And that maturity and that leadership is why our defense is having success up at this point in the season.
Sean told us he graded out as an 81. Does that feel like it was a little low considering the number of plays that he was out?
On defense, if you get mid-70s and up, you've had a really, really good game because they're critical in all situations. I don't know that you really have many players on defense that really get above the 85 average ever I've heard of. So for us, that would be like getting an A in algebra. For me, it'd be like getting a C. But anyway, he did really well.
Tyler Patman's a guy that 6 months ago you weren't even sure he would be here, and given injuries and just how important has he been for you this season?
He's been a really big impact player. We didn't have Kevin Peterson, and he had to play the entire game against a team that had over 100 plays. He's been tremendous for us on special teams. And we brought him in here as a depth to our team, to add some depth to our secondary. And, either way you look at it, I mean, he's essentially a starter. You can roll those guys in. We don't see him any different than the rest of them. He's been really good for us on special teams.
Mike, was Saturday night the first time this year where your offense actually looked like what you hoped it was going to be this year?
We played better at Iowa State, but we didn't throw the ball very good. And so we put together all three phases at Tech, and offensively we were effective at with somewhat of a balanced attack, which we've had success with that here over the last 5 or 6 years. And it felt like some of the old, with the opportunity and ability to run the ball and then also throw it out there.
And you had to have, Clint had to be able to start completing some passes, or you guys had to start completing some passes, and you did the other night. And that's.
Oh, well, I said it in here last week. If we don't throw the ball better, we're not going to win. And there's not any question about it. We can be critical. I can be critical. You guys, the public, anybody can be critical of what's going on. But the fact is there was no secret. If we didn't become a better passing team, we weren't going to be able to win games in this conference from that point forward. It'll be the same way Saturday. And, we hadn't been any good at it. We weren't very good at it. But we certainly understood that we had to match them and be able to score points, which was going to mean we had to throw the football.
So that probably makes Clint pretty high on your list today. I mean, he was able to kind of get you off that low spot.
If he didn't throw the one ball to the drop in and run it in for a touchdown, everybody would say he had a great game, but he did. So that made it to where he had a good game, and so he was improved. But I don't want to get too far away that we improved up front, and if we don't continue to play well up front, then we'll continue to get questions about why the quarterback's not doing any or having any success, and why we're not running the ball. So for us, over a number of years, when we ran up some big numbers around here, we were always pretty good up front, and we didn't make many glaring mistakes. And early in the year, we made a lot of glaring mistakes, and we weren't very, very polished up front, and so the backlash of it's not a lot of fun for offensive coaches. Good? All right.